Not enough people are talking about Operation Mockingbird. I've been talking about it for literally over 15 years, but the only other time I hear anybody talking about it are a handful of YouTubers in the alternative media, and of course Alex Jones. Crazy Alex Jones was right again. But finally, somebody had the guts to mention it on national television, and that was Glenn Greenwald on Tucker Carlson's show, of course.
If you go and Google, and I hope your viewers do, Operation Mockingbird, what you will find is that during the Cold War, these agencies used to plot about how to clandestinely manipulate the news media to disseminate propaganda to the American population. They used to try and do it secretly. They don't even do it secretly anymore. They don't need Operation Mockingbird. They literally put John Brennan, who works for NBC, and James Clapper, who works for CNN, and tons of FBI agents right on the payroll of these news organizations. They now shape the news openly to manipulate and deceive the American population.
I'm 99.99% certain that was the first time it was ever mentioned on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC for that matter, ever. Despite the 4 years of the Trump administration and the constant fake news, the leaks, the fake news coming from the deep state, no pundit on any network had the guts to utter the words, Operation Mockingbird. You may have seen my in-depth report on the subject that I published about 3 weeks ago. But then again, you may not have, because it has one of the lowest view counts out of all of my videos in the last 4 years. It is one of the most important videos that I've ever produced, but of course it got dumped down the memory hole by the algorithm, and I suspected something was wrong when it had under 100,000 views by noon, which hasn't happened to any of my videos for years. And many of you in the comments confirmed my suspicions. Normally, Mr. Dice's videos get recommended for me at the YouTube homepage. This one didn't. Looking at the views, seems like I'm not the only one. Roughly half the views. Interesting. I watch Mark Dice videos every day and they're usually at the top of my homepage, but they haven't been lately and I've had to search for new videos daily. Such BS how they try to hide conservative views, factual evidence, because they disagree with them. Your videos don't show up on my feed anymore. And they just go on and on. Wikipedia, the online disinformation encyclopedia, calls Operation Mockingbird an alleged program of the CIA. And only QAnon supporters talk about it. Quote, QAnon supporters who believe a CIA program to manipulate the media still exists and that the mainstream media are responsible for spreading fake news claim press reports they dislike are part of Operation Mockingbird. Notice how QAnon is the new alt-right. It's the favorite label now of the Democrats and the liberal media industrial complex to try to stick on to people that they don't like in order to demonize them and try to get them deplatformed. But Operation Mockingbird is just a QAnon conspiracy theory, even though I have the Church Report here in my hand that I quoted from in my previous video, which states the CIA maintained covert relationships with about 50 American journalists or employees of U.S. media organizations. About half of the some 50 CIA relationships with the U.S. media were paid relationships, ranging from salaried operatives working under journalistic cover to U.S. journalists serving as independent contractors for the CIA and being paid regularly for their services, to those who received only occasional gifts and reimbursements from the CIA. Not only do we have the Church Committee report, we also have some of the footage from the hearing itself.
Do you have any people paid by the CIA who are working for television networks?
This, I think, gets into the kind of getting into the details, Mr. Chairman, that I'd like to get into in executive session.
That was the CIA director at the time, William Colby. And in case you're not aware, an executive session is a private session which would only include members of Congress who have a security clearance to access classified information. There's plenty more to come in this video, so stay tuned, but real quick, subscribe to my channel if you're new here, because obviously you're not going to hear this kind of information anywhere else. So subscribe to the channel and check back on a regular basis. And if you're already subscribed, share this video by posting a link on your social media and give my channel a shout out so that others can come and check it out. Technically, Glenn Greenwald wasn't the first person to mention Operation Mockingbird on national television in the last 45 years. Back in May of 2018, a Washington Times editor named Cheryl Chumley was on C-SPAN on their show Washington Journal, the show that accepts a lot of callers. And one of the callers pointed out that the Smith-Mundt Act had been repealed, which then technically allows the government to subject Americans to government-created propaganda. And then she went on to say this.
Eleanor Clift, any thoughts on what you're...
I think that sounds to be like a conspiracy theory that's alive and well. I'm not going to comment on it.
Cheryl Chumman?
I'm not familiar with that particular act, but I will say that back in the 1950s, there was that whole Operation Mockingbird thing, which was never formally confirmed by the CIA, but of course that was the operation where CIA operatives worked with U.S. media to shape the messages that came out of the media, and it was purportedly supposed to have hit at hundreds of journalists and reporters. And that's something that has been reported and used in different terms.
What was the message that they were trying to get across in this?
It varied. It went on for years, right. And it wasn't just domestic, but it was also to slant and shape how government officials worked with foreign officials as well. But don't take my word for it. Look it up.
When this clip of dozens of different television stations all repeating the same talking points went viral a few years ago, a lot of people thought that it was Operation Mockingbird, but it actually wasn't. This is just a media conglomerate that fed a script to all of the local television stations that they own. Sinclair Broadcasting, which, by the way, supported President Trump. So that wasn't Operation Mockingbird. That's just a media conglomerate. Big difference. And for more information on that, go and watch my in-depth report on the Sun Valley Conference, which is basically Bilderberg for media. Before Carl Bernstein sold his soul to CNN and the Deep State, he was exposing the Deep State. And as I mentioned before, he did a detailed report for Rolling Stone on Operation Mockingbird. And surprisingly, it is still available to read in its entirety on his website. They added this little note up at the top. Quote, after leaving the Washington Post in 1977, Carl Bernstein spent 6 months looking at the relationship of the CIA and the press during the Cold War years. His 25,000-word cover story, published in Rolling Stone on October 20th, 1977, is reprinted below. It's titled The CIA and the Media, How America's Most Powerful News Media Worked Hand in Glove with the Central Intelligence Agency and Why the Church Committee Covered It Up. It's long overdue that we need a new church-style committee to investigate the CIA, the NSA, all of the alphabet agencies for their ongoing corrupt and criminal activities. Like spying on Tucker Carlson, but that's a whole other story. If you want to learn more about Operation Mockingbird, order my book, The True Story of Fake News, How Mainstream Media Manipulates Millions, in paperback from Amazon.com by clicking the link in the description below, or download the ebook onto your tablet from any of the major ebook stores. If you like watching my videos, particularly my serious and in-depth reports, you're really going to love my books. So click the link in the description below and head on over to Amazon.com and check them out.